There's a moment most people never talk about. Not the rock bottom, not the breakdown. The moment after that, when you're sitting somewhere quiet, maybe it's 2 a.m., maybe it's a Tuesday morning, and you look at yourself, really look, and you think, I don't recognize this person anymore. Not with hatred, not even with sadness exactly, just this cold clinical distance, like you're reading a biography of someone you used to know. The habits aren't yours, the reactions aren't yours. Even the way you talk to yourself in your own head sounds like someone else's voice, someone meaner, someone more tired, someone who stopped expecting things to get better somewhere along the way and just quietly accepted the smaller version. And here's what makes that moment dangerous. Not because you hit a low, because you've normalized it. What neuroscience has found about identity, about who you actually are versus who you've been trained to perform, is going to completely reframe everything you thought you knew about change. And it explains exactly why every attempt you've made to rebuild yourself has collapsed before it had a chance to take root. Stay with me, because what's coming is the thing nobody tells you at the beginning of any self-help conversation. Here's what psychology has gotten wrong for decades. It told you that to change who you are, you have to change what you do. Build new habits, install new routines, discipline your way into a new life. And that's not entirely false, but it is dangerously incomplete, because it skips the most important step entirely. Before behavior changes, before habits form, before any of it sticks, identity has to shift first. Dr. Benjamin Hardy, organizational psychologist and author of Personality Isn't Permanent, argues that most people are living inside a psychological trap so familiar they've stopped noticing the walls. They believe their personality is fixed, that who they are was decided somewhere in their past and they are now simply living out the consequences. This belief feels like self-awareness. It is actually a cage. Your brain doesn't experience identity as a truth, it experiences identity as a prediction. Every morning when you wake up, your nervous system runs a pattern-matching process before you've even opened your eyes. It scans your recent history, your stored self-concept, your most repeated narrative, and it asks a single automated question: who am I today? And then it behaves accordingly, not based on who you want to be, based on who it expects you to already be. This is called identity-based priming, and it runs deeper than willpower, deeper than motivation, deeper than any vision board you've ever made. The person who says, I'm not a morning person, doesn't sleep in because they're lazy. They sleep in because their nervous system has received that instruction so many times it no longer questions it. The person who says, I always self-sabotage, doesn't blow up good things because they're broken. Their brain is simply executing an identity it was handed a long time ago and never formally handed back. So here's the terrifying implication. Every day, you tell the same story about yourself. Your brain carves that story deeper into your neural architecture. Repetition isn't just habit, it's construction. You're literally building the self you keep describing. And the longer you've been describing a version of yourself you don't respect, the more structurally embedded that version becomes. This is the part most people need to hear twice. You are not stuck because you lack discipline. You are stuck because you are efficiently executing an identity that no longer belongs to you. And now here's what makes this extraordinary instead of just devastating. Because the same mechanism that locked you in can unlock you. And it doesn't require years of therapy. It doesn't require a dramatic life event. It doesn't require waiting until you feel ready. Because, and this is critical, you will never feel ready to become someone you don't yet believe you are. What it requires is something psychologists call an identity anchor. A single, specific, declarative statement about who you are right now, not who you're trying to become, that your brain can begin using as its morning prediction instead of the old one. Not, I want to be disciplined. That's a wish. Your brain doesn't run on wishes. I am someone who shows up. Full stop, present tense, no condition. James Clear writes about this in Atomic Habits. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you believe you are. But what he doesn't say loudly enough is this. You can decide the type of person first. Before you have evidence, before the results appear, you are allowed to make the declaration before you've earned it, because the evidence follows the identity. It never, ever works the other way around. Here's what this looks like in the brain. MIT neuroscientists studying identity and behavioral change found that when people were asked to describe themselves using present tense identity statements, I am the kind of person who, rather than goal-based language, I want to, they demonstrated significantly higher follow-through rates. not because of accountability, because the brain genuinely could not distinguish between a deeply held belief and a freshly installed one when both were encoded in the same present tense first-person structure. Your brain doesn't check your receipts. It believes what you tell it with conviction. If you're feeling something shift right now, that's not coincidence. But there's a layer underneath all of this that almost nobody addresses, and it's the reason identity shifts don't stick for most people, even when they try exactly what we just described. It's called the social mirror. George Herbert Mead, one of the founders of social psychology, theorized that identity is not built in isolation, it is built in reflection. Who you believe you are is constructed almost entirely from how the people around you have consistently treated you, described you, expected you to behave. Your identity is, in large part, a collaborative document, which means the people in your current environment are not neutral observers of your change. They are active participants in preventing it, not out of malice usually, out of cognitive consistency. When someone who has known you as anxious, or unreliable, or self-destructive, watches you begin behaving differently, their brain registers it as a threat to a predictive model they rely on. And they will, without knowing they're doing it, push back. With small comments, with skeptical looks, with the words, "That's not really like you." And if your new identity is still fragile, if you haven't reinforced it enough internally, that social mirror will crack it. This is why isolation isn't weakness at the beginning of rebuilding yourself. It is strategy. You are not hiding. You are protecting a construction that isn't load-bearing yet. And this is why the people who successfully rebuild their identities almost universally do one of two things. They either change their environment entirely, or they find one person, just one, who sees the new version of them clearly and reflects it back with consistency. Because a single mirror that shows you who you're becoming is more powerful than 100 that show you who you were. The science calls this reflected appraisal. The version of you that survives is the version that gets seen. So here's where we land. Not with a 5-step system, not with a challenge that will expire in a week, with a single question you are going to carry with you starting right now. Who would I be today if I had already become the person I most need to become? Not tomorrow, not in 6 months, not after the weight loss or the promotion or the relationship or the degree. Today. Act from that answer for 20 minutes, then again, then again. You are not trying to feel like that person yet. You are trying to move like them until your brain updates the prediction, until the story you carry is one you actually recognize, until the person in the quiet moment at 2 a.m. looks back at you and you know exactly who that is. That's not reinvention, that's reclamation, and it starts the moment you decide the old story is done being told. If this reached something you've been trying to name for a long time, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And the next video will show you exactly what happens inside the brain when you finally stop running from yourself.